Alrighty, CNT 120, Chapter 2 Lab. I'm on D2L, Chapter 2 section. I'm going to scroll down here to the Do area. First thing I'm going to do is open up the lab direction page, download a copy of that for myself, which I have right here. And then we're going to, on this lab, focus in on the network documentation part of Chapter 2. So our first podcast, we're going to do one type of network diagram. The second podcast, we're going to do a different type of network diagram. So part of our chapter was focused on network documentation. You're going to work with network documentation either in the sense of you're going to be reading network maps to figure out how to hook things up, or you eventually might be making maps or diagrams to communicate how you want something hooked up or how it is hooked up for your technicians. So to do that, we're going to use a program called diagrams.net that allows us to make these diagrams very easily. So first thing we're going to do, diagrams.net actually connects to your Google Drive. So I'm going to go back to my hack, and for me, I'm going to go to the Google Apps section, and I'm going to open up Drive for Employees. You'll open up Drive for Students, and then I do actually have a folder to create it, so I'm going to go into my 120 folder. And I do have a labs folder created, and I have a chapter 2 lab folder created. What you might want to do at this point is do a new folder and create one for yourself so that you can keep your diagrams in. I'm going to open that up. And the next thing I want to do is I want to connect this diagrams.net app to my Google Drive. So once I'm here, I'm going to go to New. I'm going to go to More, and there's an option down here to connect more apps. Now, I've already connect diagrams.net, it's here, but what you'll want to do is you connect more apps. We'll search for diagrams.net, there it is right there. And you'll notice it comes up with diagrams.net and the logo says draw.io. That is the old name. The current name is diagrams.net, but that is the program. As you highlight this, there'll be an option here to install, so click install. It'll install to your drive, and then as you say new, you'll be able to go diagrams.net and create a new diagram. So once I've connected the app, I'll open diagrams.net, and as it tells you here, we'll create one and we'll give it a name. We're going to do 2 diagrams, so we'll call this in diagram-1, if you will. I'm going to leave that draw.io extension there. So I'll do CNT 120, chapter 2, diagram 1 or something like that. And I'm going to put out here some 21 for me because I end up doing these each semester. So I'm going to do create. Now you might get a couple pop-ups saying, giving you permission to connect it to your drive and that sort of thing. So you say yeah, there might be a pop-up or two. So click yeah or authorize. Okay. So the first time you do that, you might need to do a couple yeses or authorizes to do that. We now need to add a couple shapes to our drawing palette. Here's our drawing palette over here. We need a couple shapes that we will use for these diagrams. So I'm going to down here to more shapes. And here is all the different repositories of shapes we can do. Under the networking area, we want to make sure we click Cisco. We also want to make sure we click network and rack. Those are the 3 main ones we need. That'll give us most of the icons we need for this. So once I check those, I'll say apply. It'll now add those over here as icons to choose from. So now I have those icons for doing common network maps, the common icons that people use for doing network maps. All right. For the first diagram, we're basically going to duplicate what's here. Whenever you're doing something new, you always kind of copy what's there until you understand how to do it, and then you can branch out on your own. So this time through, we're going to copy this. This is actually a diagram out of your book, too. And I have a couple hints here. We're going to use the search shapes to try to find the icon we're looking for. And then I remind you in here that, pretty close is good enough, but we're going to try to get really close to these so that we're communicating the right idea. So to do that, we'll come over here, and I'm going to search for Cisco router. So I'll search over here for, right there's my search shapes. I'll search for Cisco router. And I might need to do the more and the more until I get a bunch of icons in here, until I can see something that looks close to what I have on the screen. And here is, these are pretty close. These are pretty close. There we go. There's the one I'm looking for, just a plain router. I'll drag that on the screen. And then I'm going to put a label on it, so I'm going to double click on top and I'll type Cisco router. And now I have a label. In real life, I might put in here Cisco router 2911 or whatever the model number is. For now, I can just do Cisco router. I'll duplicate what's here on the label. All right. Well, let's add the workgroup switches, and then we'll add the cloud over there. So I'll do Cisco workgroup switch. If I can type, that might help. There we go. There is the workgroup switch. And since I need 2 of those, I will be smart here. I'll put the label on Cisco workgroup switch. And then I'll do a Control-C, Control-V. There we go. And now I have that icon pasted right there. So now I have those 2 switch icons right there. Excellent. Let's get the cloud in here, then we'll start connecting a couple of things together. So I'm going to do Cisco Cloud. And I'm going to look for some credit cloud. Pretty much any one of these will communicate the idea. So I'm going to drag one out here. I'm going to make him a little larger. And again, I'll double click on and I'll put in something like ISP or Internet. Now I have the Internet, I have the router, I have the 2 switches. Let's start connecting these together. What to connect in here, if I highlight over one icon, you'll see the arrows show up on the sides. I'll grab one of these arrows, I'll click it and drag it until it highlights the other icon, and I'll let it go. So there's my connection between the 2. But you notice that's kind of like a right angle line. That's not usually what we want. So I'm going to click on the line, and over on the right you see a palette comes up of style for that element, the text for that, arrangement, etc. Well, under style, we have options for the line. I can pick over here that I want a straight line, and I can also pick that I want to get rid of that arrow that's there. So I'll highlight it again, and I'll hit the drop down over here and say none, and that gets rid of that arrow. Now those 2 are connected, and wherever they move, they'll remain connected, which is excellent. I'm going to do the same thing now between my router and my switch. And since I've already set that that's the style I want, you'll notice that it pretty much keeps that style for my line, which is good. So there's my switches connected. Excellent. Let's now add in some PCs. So let's do Cisco PC. And we're going to grab, that'll work. We know we need a couple of these. We need a couple on this side and a couple on this side. So I'm going to put on here Cisco PC, and let's do a Control-C, and let's do Control-V. There's 3 for this side, and then I know I need 3 for the other side. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to slide them over here, and now I have all my PCs in my network. Well, this side, these directly connect, so we're going to connect these straight up. And then this side over here, we have an additional piece of equipment. So let's look at our map again. We need an IP phone. All right, so let's search for Cisco IP phone. And there he is right there. So again, I'm going to put him on the map. Let's do a label, Cisco IP phone. And Control-C, Control-V, so now I have 3 of them. And in a real live network, they would actually be hooked up like it is in this map. So let me scroll down here. Let's get a little room. In a real live network, we would actually have the PC connected to the phone, then the phone connected to the switch. That is very normal. So I'm now going to do all of those connections. Phone to switch, phone to switch, phone to switch, and then PC to phone, PC to phone, PC to phone. There we go. And it goes across the label. That's not a huge deal. We can always make this neat in a minute here when we have time. But there's the basics so far. We only have a few items left. We have an access point, a file server, and a printer. So let's put the access point in. Access points are going to get connected to switches. So let's look for a Cisco access point. So Cisco access point. That's a wireless access point. And there's our icon right there. So I'll put them up here. Double click. Cisco access point. If I can type, there we go. And I will connect that guy into the switch. Now I need I'll do Cisco printer. And there's a printer. I think he was on this side. Yep, he's on that side, so I'll label him Cisco printer. I'll connect him into this switch. And then we have one last item. I think it was the file server. File server. There we go. There's a file server right there. I'll put him here. I'll label him Cisco file server. And then I will connect him in. Excellent. Now, that is super quick. By all means, pause and slow down as you need time to do pieces in here. But that is how do we do our whole map. Once you're at this point, take a minute and maybe kind of neaten things up so everything's readable. Maybe spread your computers out a little bit so they're readable. Same thing over here, maybe neaten them up. And once I have everything in here and I have it kind of neatened up, oops. Do it like that maybe. I'll put this guy over here. There we go. Once we have that done, this is actually saving. This diagram is actually saving to your Google Drive. Here's my summer 21 diagram I'm working on right now. It's saving to your Google Drive for you. So you don't have to worry about that part. But once you're ready for this to be done and submitted for the lab, you will need to export this as a file that can be dropped into the Dropbox. So I'm going to do File, Export As, and I'm going to use like JPEG or PDF. Those usually play nicely with D2L. So I'm going to do File, Export JPEG, and I'm just going to accept all the faults. I'm going to say, yep, I want to export it all. I can put it back in my Google Drive, but in this case, I'm going to download it so that I have it on my machine to submit to D2L. So here in my Downloads folder, here is that diagram as a JPEG. There it is right there. That now is in a format that I can submit to D2L. So I would just go to my Dropbox here, go to my Dropbox for Chapter 2, select that file, and submit it to the Dropbox. That is how I'm doing the first diagram in this lab. And here's the export reminder here. All right. The next podcast, we're going to come back and do a different type of diagram. And actually, while I'm on this real quickly, let me go back to our diagram here. This should look familiar to the logical view on Cisco Packet Tracer. We basically created a logical map here. The second diagram we're going to do is going to look like the physical side of my Cisco Packet Tracer. So this will be our physical diagram, if you will. All right. All right. So there's the first diagram on the Chapter 2 lab.